The following program contains adult language, poor taste in jokes, racial slurs, political slurs, slants, and all sorts of things that if you are sensitive and have a delicate constitution, you should probably go watch Teletubbies. You were warned.
Hey kids, welcome back to Roto Talk.
Kids, welcome back. Hang on. All right, so it's the next day. We have a nice tight finish there. So now what we're going to do, I have not done any sanding. I have not sanded my top edges. I haven't sanded anything. There's a reason for that, because I'm not even going to mask this thing. I'm going to shoot it with that orange for the inside. Okay, remember, where'd it go? Here. Showed you this last night. Nice and warm now. And still shake it, and then we'll empty it into a paint gun. And we're going to shoot it. Then, after it's done shot, because I'm not masking anything, I'm just going to kind of slop shoot it. I'm going to shoot it from here. Might do the whole back, depends on what my mood is. Then, what we're going to do is we're going to put in our pour foam for the front, because just in case the pour foam comes up higher than I want it to in the bow, it sands real easy. So when I do my sanding, I can get that done. And I don't want to sand it before I spray this, because I'm just going to get funky paint all over everything. I just have to sand it again, so there's no point in that. Then, after the inside dries, which will only take a second, then we're going to sand everything up, putty everything up. Well, let's see. Now we'll do a rough sand, we'll put on the top, and then we'll sand the whole thing, and then we'll seal clear it. Okay? So, I'm going to go do that. I'll be right back. Hey kids, we're back. It's the next day. So, I got the interior paint shot in. Again, not perfect. Don't care. It's the inside of a boat, like I said. And then I shot about another 3 or 4 coats of clear to seal everything up. Very, very nice. So, I did have a gotcha right here that I did not catch before I did it. A little piece of fiber cloth sticking up. Actually, it's the edge. Something like that. I don't care. It's the inside of a cracker boat. It's not a $1,000 hydroplane. So, got my new heating system in the shop. Check this out. I got one of these. You ever seen these things? These Amish freaking... Well, it's not Amish, but one of these heat-powered fans. Runs off of a transducer. No electricity. Just stick it on top of your kerosene heater. Very cool. This is just single car garage, as you guys probably know. Doesn't take much to heat it up in here, and it's about 45 degrees out. I want to epoxy that top on. This is nice and safe. I think the heater cost me $130 maybe at Menards. Works really well, had good reviews. I've had many kerosene heaters in the past. But yeah, it works really well. You know, waste more money at Menards. So, but yeah, I mean, it heats it up in here. You put that thing, that's not even on half. It's about half. Put it on full blast for about 3 minutes. It's like 90 in here, so I can turn down even more than that. But I want it to be kind of nice in here, temperature-wise, because I'm going to be putting on that top deck. Fixing one of my cousin's chainsaws again. So anyway, nice and toasty. I was using one of those salamanders. You guys know what those are? Those tubular heaters with propane, and it blows out like a jet engine. Excuse me, hang on. And that was great. It heated up really good, but super loud. And I didn't like the big open flame in here just because of all the chemicals and everything else. My wife she's paranoid on a good day anyway, and she's like, oh, you need to get something safer. And I'm glad I did. Not for the fact of being safer, just the fact that it's nice. I can let it go for 8 hours, and it doesn't even burn up that much kerosene. I don't have to worry about vapor locks and air locks with the propane crap. So I can feel a little bit more comfortable about just leaving the heater on. So my epoxy can cure nice. So here we are. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sand this edge. You can see right here. Got a nice top edge. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the plane first over the high parts. Okay. We're going to plane the high parts. And then I'm going to go ahead and just sand this flat. I'm going to sand all these little nubby bubs off. I'm going to sand the paint and clear coat off of everything so we get a nice top. I also did clear coat the bottom of the top, and I clear coated the bottom of the hatch in the back. So what I'm going to do now, like I said, I'm going to use my plane, try to go from open end direction in so you don't chip anything off. I'm going to use my plane, then I'm going to sand it, try to make it as level as you possibly can. Use a nice straight edge, put it across, and you'll be able to see, like, hang on a minute. Something like this works perfect. 24-inch, a little 2-foot bar. And then once I get this edge down, you know, you can put it across your bulkheads, make sure everything's nice, and as you can see, not so much right now. And we'll make sure everything's nice and level. Then we're going to put epoxy on all these ribs, the outer edge. That's the most important part. Really make sure that outer edge is good. And then we're going to put epoxy on each one of these. Now, one thing I am going to do, I did clear coat the bottom to seal the top, the bottom of the top, sorry. One thing that we are going to do is we are going to scuff manually by hand. I'm going to take some 40 grit sandpaper. I mean, it's like pebbles on a freaking rock, right? Or pebbles on paper. And I'm just going to scuff the whole bottom side. We're not going to take off that clear coat because clear coat's sunk in. It takes 3 hours to cure. It was a beautiful day yesterday, so it was nice and warm out, and it sunk in real nice. I'm not worried about that. But we're going to let that, it's soaked in. I'm not worried about sanding it out. You really have to sand the shit out of it to get it out. But I'm just going to scuff it so the epoxy has a really good bonding surface, right? Then the top's easy. What we're going to do, hang on a minute. I should say the top's easy on a cracker. Okay, let's take these off. Again, I had to reinforce these light ass edges. So we're going to find our happy spot. So we'll neaten these edges up when we're done. That's going to basically get clamped there. We're going to clamp this to that bulkhead. Remember what I said the other day about how this just goes in there? Alright. Those clamps are going to be our centering. I don't make marks. You can if you want. But what I do is I make sure when I put it on, we've got a little bit of overhang everywhere. You want some overhang everywhere. Okay, especially the back. Back's going to have the least. Okay. Really simple on this boat. It's a flat top. So, with a flat top boat, as long as your mating surface is good and flush, you just put a ton of weights on it, set it and forget it. I mean, I'll probably still clamp the back and all that jazz. At this point, too, you could also put in the shaft. You could do all sorts of stuff. Follow the manual. Don't necessarily follow me, obviously. Joe's got it all laid out in the manual on the steps in order to do things, and that's great. I just do it my way. I do all that ancillary crap last. The shaft and all that stuff. It's not a big deal to do afterwards. Oh, one thing we did forget to do. Pour foam. Crap. All right. So here we go. Pour foam. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to let this thing record with the pour foam. And then, hang on. Where'd it go? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to let, this is the stuff I don't, well, I do use this brand, but I buy it in bigger bottles. But I was in a pinch one time, so I got the little shit. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to put foam here and here. That's it. Do this before you sand. 2 reasons. 1, if you get schmutz on any of the rails, you can sand it off. This stuff sands like a dream. It floats really, really well. It's really light. It's not loose like pool noodles. It does add strength. This stuff is pretty strong. It really is. I'll show you when it's done curing. Has a lot of flotation, but you got to remember, once this boat's sealed up nice, you should have a pretty decent air cavity up here too, unless you're racing and somebody cuts you off the top. But I only fill it with foam from here to here, or if you want to change your CG a little bit, this stuff is not heavy. It's not going to make that big of a difference. But I don't love seeing foam in here, so I usually put it here and here. And what I do is I kick up the back end of the boat a little bit. So it's like this. It's a little bit, it's wanting to gravitate towards the bow. And that's all we do. So I'm going to go ahead and kick up the ass end of the boat. And then we're going to mix this up. And I'm going to show you. And I'm going to leave the camera on. And then we'll high speed through it so you guys can watch this stuff float up. It's pretty cool. It's great stuff. Not super cheap, but the boat's not super cheap. I mean, these aren't cheap toys, obviously. So if you're going into this much time and effort with it and you want it to be nice, do it this way. I mean, that's my suggestion. If you want, you could put pour foam back here. Got bugs in my stuff. This is where the hatch is going to go. You could put a strip of pour foam back here or back here. I've never seen the need for that with a cracker. They float pretty damn well. And I have nose-ended them floating like this many times. I think the first one I ever built, I did put foam in the back, but hey, it's really not needed. But if it makes you feel better, go ahead and do it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this ready, and we'll be right back. All right, so now there is a foam on the market that you've all seen before. It's called Great Stuff. It's in a can. You spray it into window cracks in your basement and stuff, and it insulates it. Do not use that crap in your boat. A, it's heavier. B, I don't think it floats as well, because I have done tests on it. C, it will explode, in the sense of, you can put this stuff in. I've done it many, many times. You can put this stuff in after your top's on. This is a two-part. So it has a thermal curing effect. It's like epoxy, okay? And what will happen is it's not instantaneous. And when it's, I'm trying to think of the consistency it is. It's really a bizarre consistency when it's going. When it's done, it's hard as a rock, pretty much. But what it'll do, it will actually form to the shape of your hull. Even if your deck's on, it won't pop your deck off. It'll blow this way. It might come out these holes over here, but it's not going to blow your deck off. The Great Stuff, I mean, unless you're really careful with it, don't use that stuff, man. I'm telling you. If you're gonna invest in it, buy this. I got this off Amazon, okay, or eBay. Or use pool noodles. Pool noodles work fine too. Go to Dollar General, cut some up, stuck them in there. You're fine. That's whatever blows your skirt up, but don't use the Great Stuff. Here's another tip. This is important, and this has happened to me before. This stuff adds some pretty good strength. That's why I put it way up front in the bow, to be honest. Okay, it really does, because this stuff, once it's in your boat, the only way to get it out is to use a wire wheel. That works best. Put a wire wheel on a drill, I suppose a Dremel. You can trim it if you want. You can actually sculpt this stuff and just stick your wire wheel in there and it'll burn it right out. That's about the only way you're getting it out, though. Remember that. But here's something I noticed. One time I built, I can't remember if it was a cracker. It doesn't matter. And no, it was my Thunderboat, and I had to redo it. I put the deck on Einstein, one of my Thunderboats, and I poured it into the nose, and it worked great. And it's, man, you could hit the beak of that thing. Actually, here, I'll show you. This is getting long in the tooth, but there's Einstein, okay? And I actually poured it. Now, if you look at the beak right here, okay, it looks pretty much perfect, okay? It is now, because when I poured, this boat used to be green when I first built it. When I poured it in, what had happened was, when it expanded, it gripped. Shit is super, super sticky. Super sticky when it's curing. And it gripped the deck, and then it solidified, which was awesome. It was like, sounded like that. It was fantastic. However, when I got water in it, because this is open behind it, it's kind of like the cracker, there's just bulkheads and it gets in there. Something shrank, like in the foam a little bit. Not much, just a little bit. Or the temperature change or something. I don't know. It happened, though. And it literally pulled my duck nose in like that a little bit. Oh, it annoyed me. Now, it wasn't bad. It just looking at it, you couldn't even tell unless you look close. So when I went to repaint it last, maybe this spring or whenever it was, I actually redid the whole nose just to get rid of that, because that's one of my favorite boats. So, reasonably important to get these equal. Don't have to be perfect, but they have to be more perfect than epoxy. Okay? It'll still work, but it'll actually change the pore size of your holes. Or size of your pores in the foam. The little holes inside. And it makes it a funky color. So what I do... okay. We don't need a ton, because remember, it's 50-50 mix. So I'm going to do that. in one. And I do it in 2 cups because cups are tapered. So the higher you go, if I just fill this up into that one, you're going to end up getting more. So I just kind of do it like that. Whichever one has the most, which is going to be the clear one on the left, has a little bit more, has a couple mil higher. I pour that one, the one that has the most, into this one because you're going to have a little residual left in there. So we're going to pour this in. This stuff doesn't smell good, but it doesn't reek. I mean, it doesn't like stink up the house. It's not toxic smelling like fiberglass or anything like that. It is some nasty to get off your hands, though. I don't. Be careful with that. You wear gloves if you want to. I should be. All right. It does cure pretty quick. So you want to stir this until it comes to consistent. See that caramel looking? Looks like coffee. You don't want that. You want it to be a consistent, creamy, schmeamy schmuff. Whatever the hell schmuff is. Okay. Now, here's a trick. Once it starts whipping, meaning it starts curing, starts getting warm, don't stir it anymore. The more you stir it after it starts heating up, the smaller the cells will be, or the air cells. I found that out too. So that can actually come in handy. The more dense it will be. It's kind of like beaten eggs. What'll happen is it won't expand as much, which you might want. So what I do, this stuff is not that heavy. So if you get more in one side than the other, don't freak out. It's not going to... Oops, see, I didn't mix it very good. It's okay. It'll still work. Now, better to do this twice than to put a shit ton in there and have it come up. I had a little bit in the bottom. It's all right. This will still blow up. Just won't be as good. I'm going to have to put more in there. It's okay. So, I want to make this... Still not liking me. There we go. Reasonably level. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to mix more and put it in there. I thought I had more than that. So you can see it's expanding fairly well. So I'm just going to I'm going to turn off the camera, turn it back on so I know where to speed it up. It's easier for editing. And we'll be right back. All right, as you can see, I got a little ahead of myself on them side bits. That's okay. This stuff comes off so easy with a sander. I'm not worried about it, but this is why it's nice to do before you put your top on. Now, do not try to take it off before it's cured. See, now you can see it's got this pound cake type of schmutziness to it. It gets really warm, by the way. You can feel the bottom of your hull, and it's nice and toasty. Don't try to do that. It'll just turn it, it's like cutting hot marshmallow and it just goes all over the place. This stuff cuts really, really nice with a sander, which is probably mostly what I'm going to do here. These I'm going to leave in. It's just extra flotation. It's not going to hurt anything. Might cut this one down a little bit. These sides expanded a little bit more than I thought they would. Listen to this. That's the first one we did. Here's the one I just poured. Okay, not hard yet, another 5 minutes. It only takes about 5 minutes, maybe 10, to really just rock right up. It's very, very, very fast stuff. I'll take a utility knife, or an X-Acto, or whatever, not an X-Acto, but a razor blade, and I'll just trim this top off real quick. And then when I go to sand it, it comes off with zero effort. It really does, so don't worry about it. If you don't like the way this looks, you can cut these out with a blade, or... This works really well. All I got to do is slide this down, shink, 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 and it cuts it right off. It really does. Stuff's great to work with, but yeah, I guess you will see it. Maybe. I'll go ahead and cut those off. Those little lobes. Tumors. But yeah, so there's our flotation. It didn't add a ton of weight to the bow, but it's okay because I built these a lot. I built a lot of these crackers. I know how much it'll be fine. This is going to weigh a little bit more than a pool noodle up here, probably, but not a hell of a lot. You'll see when we go to run, it'll plane out just absolutely perfect. As a matter of fact, my black boat that you guys saw, the black cracker in the other video that we put the screwball engine in, You saw how it just kept flipping and flipping and flipping, because it was just, well, part of that was the engine, but there wasn't too much weight in the front of that boat at all. And that one's built the exact same way as this, so it'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and let this finish curing up. I'm going to sand all this, and then we'll be right back, and I'll show you how to epoxy the top on, and we'll leave her sit for a while. Be right back. All right, we are back. See how hard that is? Now, just to show you real quick, you can literally, this one's still not, needs to be a little bit harder. Let's see here. See that? You can slice it fairly well. Might sharpen this up a little bit. So I might trim these out real quick. Then what I'm going to do, we're going to sand all the way around. One thing I do on my crackers, it's just a thing I do. I make a widow's peak at the front. I actually sand it so it points down a little bit. Just gives a little bit more of a streamlined look instead of that just straight, you know. I just like to bring it down and tight. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll be right back. We'll epoxy this baby together. Stay tuned. All right, so we're pretty much prepped and ready. Everything's sanded. Then I go over it with an orbital, actually, just to make sure everything's nice and level. You just keep moving. You don't have to do it, just how I do it. Using a power sander on a boat is very risky sometimes if you're not used to it. So I got my widow's peak, a little bit of maybe 3 degrees. And then I went over it with some 150 just to make sure everything's nice and planed out. So I cut off those tumors that were right here. You can get this out too if you really want to, but you're not going to see it, so I'm not worried about it. So you can see really, really light. So if you don't need it, take it. And I sanded all of this flush. Sand's super easy. As a matter of fact, here's some 150 grit. Watch this. Now, I don't use 150, I use 80 when I sand this crap to make sure the camera's good. Alright. So, cut off those. So yeah, a little bit of weight, but if you stuff 2 pool noodles in here, usually pool noodles, a lot of gap between pool noodles, air gap, so you have to put more pool noodles in to get the same amount of flotation. So you're going to be filling this whole thing up. It's going to come out about the same. Doesn't matter. Alright, so now what we're going to do, simply enough, I'm going to take 30 weight, or 30 minute epoxy, and I'm going to line all the bare wood, all the edges that you can see here. Alright, I also brought that nice and even. Got my widow's peak in there. The only thing I'm probably going to have to clamp, I'm going to clamp the rear. I'm going to clamp these. But as far as power clamps go, I'm going to clamp the bow because I do have a peak now. I have to bring it down a little bit. And I will do some bar clamps on the back side, and we're going to weight the rest of it. Doesn't need a ton. It's a flat. It's not like doing a hydroplane where you got to get really clever with all of your, check this out, with all of your clamping. Let's see all the dust. Woo! I literally blow this place out with a leaf blower every day because it gets that dusty. But yeah, it's nothing like this, where you've got these compound radiuses, and same thing with the Thunderboats, where you've got you're bending this way and this way, compound radius. You have to get really, really clever with all of your clamping techniques. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, clamp it all up. I'm going to mix up some 30 weight, 30 minute epoxy. Try and make it nice and clean. You don't want big old drips, okay? And then that'll be about it for this video. And I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like with all the clamps and the weights on it. Be right back. Alright, one thing I forgot to mention. Get one of these. These things are handy. A little Stanley, it's like a utility knife, but it holds a Sawzall blade. Really good for cutting this stuff around. Anyway, comes in handy around the house too. Well, let's get started on that top. Right, here we are. We are done. So, you can see it is starting to look like a boat now. Kind of. Boat that goes to Gold's Gym. Pretty heavy clamping around my nose because I do have it tapering down just a little bit, but that makes pressure. And then there you go. We've got everything under some 30 weight, 30 minute epoxy. And that's it. It's nice and toasty in here. It's going to cure up fast. It's like 85 degrees. And then we'll take it from there. So after it's done, I'm going to take all the weights off of it and sand it. And then I'm going just rough sand the outside. And then I'm going to explain to you how I sanded it and the best ways to do that. So, until next time, kids, keep dry side up. Bye.
Gangnam Style. Op, 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 Gangnam Style.